Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about remote work. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what should I think about before I take a job as a remote developer? And the short answer is isolation, my friend, and value. That probably is the best answers. Yeah, let me explain. So what I mean by isolation and what I mean by value or low value is that when you work as a remote developer, it kind of depends a little bit on the company in question, but usually if you are a remote developer and unless you're working for an all remote company, odds are that you will find it sort of difficult to have your voice heard within the company because you are not perceived as being as big of a part of the company as the people who are working, as we call it, in-house. And in-house just means that you are working in on-prem, like you're in the offices and you have coffee with your coworkers and like you talk and all of that stuff. Now, the reason is very simple for this. It's actually just down to this funny little thing that we humans have, which is social connections. And these social connections you build with the people you see every day. Now, although you are present and so forth, it's usually the case that you will find it harder and harder to make yourself heard, especially if your opinion differs a little bit from that of the others. I mean, you can, of course, create a more intimate relationship with your coworkers, and if you really work at it, you can sustain that even if you are a remote worker. But you should know that usually people, especially when it comes down to like democratic decisions or like should we do this or should we use that or so forth, people tend to go with one part what they actually do believe themselves and one part basically what everybody else is saying, and if they agree, if they enjoy their relationship with that person. So that's the part that you should think about. I don't want to make it sound like this is a bad, I don't want you to think that doing remote work is a bad thing. It's just that I want you to be aware of that when you're not in the room, you will start to feel that at some point that you are not in the room. You will not build the same connections as you would have if you actually were working there. Even though you of course gain the benefits of, okay, you can, in many cases, I'm not saying this is always the case. It's not like just because you do remote work that you can start work whenever. Quite a lot of the companies who allow remote work have office hours where you are expected to be available. And the simple reason for that is because if they have people who work at all hours of the day, it's very hard to collaborate, which brings us into the next thing, which is that you will become very isolated very quickly. Now, for an experienced developer or a mid-level developer or something like that, this is not so much of an issue if you don't have the desire to improve your craft to such a point where you truly are considered to be one of the experts within the industry. Because the way to get to that level is through collaboration. There's no way around it. No person who works in complete isolation can achieve the same level of mastery as somebody who has peers who can code it, who they can get feedback on a fairly regular basis from. You still get some feedback when you do remote work, like you still get code reviews and things of this nature, and you of course do video conferences and so forth, but you still work predominantly by yourself. And one thing I should tell you is that it is very, very common that even the slightest distance between people, you will not believe me when I say this, or maybe you will, even a distance of one floor or one or two hallways away is a distance that is long enough for it to start to affect how likely somebody is to ask for help from another person or to collaborate or like things of this nature. And especially if it's remote, because it's for quite a lot of people, it feels very unnatural to have an in-depth, like long and fruitful conversation with somebody over an instant messaging system. And then you have to go into a video conference, which is a little bit tedious for some people. Some people feel that it's okay, but quite a lot of people feel that that's a lot of work. The best way I can put this is pretty much that you get into this weird situation where there's a slight social barrier. You feel like you have to do some work in order to talk to the remote worker. And when that happens, you will see less and less interactions between yourself and the company and the people who are working in-house. Because the in-house people are usually located in roughly the same office space. So, I mean, if Bob and Jane need to, like, if Bob wants some feedback, he can just lean over to Jane and like ask, can you take a look at this? But the remote worker, you need to actually send them a messaging system. Hopefully they will reply. Maybe they won't, maybe there will be a delay, and then you need to communicate through text usually, and then you finally realize that, oh shit, this conversation or this discussion about feedback is a little bit too tricky to communicate just through text. So what really we want here is to realize that, oh, we actually need that social interaction that you gain from just talking to each other. And that means that, okay, now you have to have a video conference, but you're kind of tired because you've already started talking on text, and it's like watching two teenagers sit and text to each other even though they're like right next to each other. It's the same principle. So these sorts of things you may not think matter all that much, but you should know that they will have an impact on you. And if you are a sociable person or someone who has the need to feel like connection to people, doing remote work will take a bit of a toll. I promise you, you will feel some of what I'm talking about, even though it's certainly a very nice benefit to be able to, as I said, work from wherever you want to be and be able to more or less set your own schedules and so forth. You still, as I said, have some overlapping hours that you need to be in the office or be available, basically. So what I want you to take away from this is that what at least I think that you should think about when you consider remote work as a developer is, number one, the isolation. Isolation in the sense that the people who are working in the office will have a stronger connection to each other and become a little bit of a friend group often. And that connection is going to be much stronger for them than it's going to be for you. You will likely not feel the same connection because odds are that you will see on average less social interactions with the people who are working within the company, unless everybody is remote and the office culture is that everybody does remote work, then it might be different. But usually remote workers find themselves isolated, and your personal development will actually go slower because you don't get as frequent feedback as you would have if you were working in the offices. And the second thing is that your voice will carry less weight oftentimes. Some people will even forget to call you into meetings and things like that. You might miss out on certain things just because, everybody's thinking about everybody who is around them or everybody they have coffee with, but they forget about that remote worker who's sitting somewhere else doing something, right? So when it comes to voting and like having an opinion on what should be done and so forth, everybody has a voice, and a democracy is usually in a democracy type of situation when you're working in IT. It comes down to what does everybody else want, what does everybody want, and what is my connection to these people. And as you can imagine, if your opinion as the remote worker is different from that of the rest from other people, odds are that you will be kind of dismissed and they will just ignore what you're saying. These are some things that you should remember to keep with you, even though the benefits of doing a remote type of deal is of course that you don't have to go into an office and you can work from home and so forth. There are benefits, but you should also be aware of that there are consequences. Have a great day.